Hey there YouTube, Wrestling Optimus here, back with another action figure review. It's Wednesday, the best night of the wrestling week, which means it's time for AEW Dynamite on TNT. Tonight marks the 1-year anniversary of Dynamite, so to celebrate, all championships are on the line, and I'm sure they've got plenty of other surprises in store for us too. As always, if you're new here, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more pro wrestling and action figure content. Now, we're headed into Daly's place, so for a recap and review, let's take it over to the action figures. Penelope Ford and Kip Sabian are playing a video game at ringside again as Dynamite opens with a tag team title match between FTR and Best Friends. This is a regular 60-minute match, not a 20-minute brush with greatness. It's exactly the kind of match you would expect from these two teams, with FTR using old-school tag team psychology and Best Friends showing off their flashy new athletic style. After getting worked over for a bit, Trent gets the tag to Chucky T, who cleans house and takes out the champs with a tope con hero. Tully interferes, sweeping out Chuck's leg and leading to a near fall. Best Friends hit the strong zero, but Wheeler breaks it up. Trent takes Cash into the crowd, where he goes to spear him, but winds up smashing the arcade cabinet to pieces. A grief-stricken Kip sends Penelope to the back for someone. Cash swings at Chuck with one of the title belts and misses, but manages to connect just as the ref dodges an errant punch, missing the DQ. Chuck is knocked out, and FTR pick up the win. They head out the tunnel as Best Friends give each other a consolation hug. Penelope Ford comes back out with Miro, who proceeds to lay out Best Friends for smashing what I guess was his arcade cabinet, even though it said Kip on the side. He and Kip are in action next anyway, so they stay in the ring. They're taking on Lee Johnson and Sean Maluda. JR tells us that Samoan legend Afa is Maluda's uncle, making him technically part of the Anoa'i tree through marriage. It's basically a squash match. Miro's been portrayed as a monster thus far in AEW, and now that he's extra pissed over his broken video game, these jobbers don't stand a chance. Miro throws Johnson around, then sinks in the game over on Maluda for the win. After the match, Kip says Best Friends went too far and destroyed his most prized possession. Miro shouts in Bulgarian and calls them good friends. He says they broke his shit, and now it's gonna be game over for them. The cameras cut backstage where Lance Archer is beating up Jon Moxley and some security guards while Jake Roberts unsuccessfully attempts to put on a vest. It's time for an MJF promo, who comes out with Wardlow and makes fun of the crowd. He says he's here to get on top and stay there, just like his guest did in this industry for over 30 years. It's Chris Jericho. Le Champion comes out with the rest of the inner circle to a chorus of Judas. MJF notices that Sammy finally got his jacket, but it's gigantic. Jericho tells him to put it on anyway. Max and Chris have one of their classic back and forths with MJF laying the compliments on thick, until Jericho tells him to cut the shit. MJF explains that they're the two biggest draws in the company. Jericho is the demo god, and MJF is the ratings ruler. They're both predators, but their prey are adapting. So even though they're each great separate, what if they joined forces? In a really funny bit, MJF reluctantly says he would kinda, sorta, hypothetically, theoretically, might possibly, maybe, sorta wanna join the inner circle. Jericho seems interested, but Ortiz says they don't want MJF, and asks if they can leave. Jericho says they'll think it over. While they do, he challenges Max to a steak dinner next week. Yes, you heard that right, and everyone plays it up brilliantly, as if he had just insulted MJF's mom. He angrily accepts, and Jericho says, "I'll see you at the restaurant." Jake Hager and Wardlow stare each other down as they leave, continuing to foreshadow a future encounter between them. Tony Schiavone is at the spa with Britt Baker, who's getting a face mask treatment. She yells for Reba to continue her presentation about being a role model. Today's lesson, per JR, you have to be the baddest bitch on the block. When she sits up and removes her mask, she realizes that Tony's naked and starts screaming. This leads to a 40-year-old virgin-style waxing scene. While getting pedicures, Dr. Baker explains that when you're a bad bitch, you have to make an epic comeback, and promises next week hers will be. She scolds Tony for not being at her last match, to which he replies that he had just gotten super kicked in the face. That doesn't matter to her though, and apparently she fixed his teeth afterwards. Cody comes out, still banged up from his dog collar match with Brody Lee, to defend his TNT Championship against freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy. Per usual, he's flanked by Brandi and Arn Anderson. Interestingly, Justin Roberts announces Cody as the Prince of Pro Wrestling. He runs the ropes and tries to lock up with Orange, but Cassidy stands there silently, putting his hands in his pockets. Finally, out of frustration, Cody shoves him and it's on. Cody tries a bunch of amateur wrestling, but Cassidy effortlessly evades whatever the American Nightmare can dish out. After a commercial, Cassidy delivers some devastating kicks, much to Cody's chagrin. Cody runs into the Dark Order on the outside. In the chaos, John Silver steals the TNT title belt and tries to hit Cody with it, but Orange stops him. Referees eject the whole group from ringside while Silver freaks out. We see Darby Allin high up in the stands, a la Sting, and we learn that he'll challenge for the TNT Championship at Full Gear. Orange hits a stunner, and Cody hits a cutter, but they can't hit the beach break or crossroads respectively. We get an old-fashioned figure 4 struggle, then, just as the 1-minute warning sounds, there's almost a double countout. Orange manages to get Cody back in the ring before hitting a swinging DDT and the beach break. It's an amazing false finish, but somehow Cody kicks out. Cassidy desperately goes for one final pin attempt just as the last seconds tick down, but it's too late, resulting in a time limit draw. Cody is still your TNT champion. I frankly don't care what anyone else says, I absolutely loved this match. There was so much drama and a great story from the opening bell to literally the closing seconds. That's how you book a face vs. face title match. It perfectly mirrored Cody vs. Darby's first match, and oh look who was watching in the stands. Not a fantasy book, I predict that this will set up a triple threat for the title down the line. Alex Marvez tries to interview Lance Archer backstage, but he's almost immediately attacked by Moxley. Archer decks one of the officials, and it's picked up on the microphone. Matt Hardy is at ringside with his entire family. He's enjoying the anniversary show and announces that he's 100% healthy and ready for his return. Suddenly, we hear ominous music and a video plays on the Tron. It shows photographs of all Matt's personalities being developed in a dark room. A hooded figure sets them on fire before revealing himself as Sammy Guevara. In a possible dig at Vince, Sammy admits he was the one who attacked Matt at All Out.
It's me, Austin! Oh, son of a bitch! What? It's me, Austin! It was me all along, Austin!
He promises that every time Hardy is cleared medically, he's going to put him right back on the shelf until he sends Matt home for good. Tony Schiavone is in the ring with FTR and Tully Blanchard. He explains that next week there will be a 4-way tag team match to determine FTR's opponent at Full Gear. While the entire division stands on stage, 4 teams are randomly drawn: Private Party, Silver and Reynolds of the Dark Order, the Butcher and the Blade, and, yes, the Young Bucks. Matt and Nick walk to the ring with sinister smirks. They aggressively shake hands with FTR before super kicking John Silver and the Blade. A massive brawl breaks out as the Bucks tear apart the set. It ends with them and Private Party standing tall. They briefly embrace, only for the Bucks to super kick them too. A lot of people are heavily criticizing this segment. The most common thing I've heard is that the random nature of it negates the rankings and diminishes the real sports feel we were promised. But the rankings were never framed as the end-all be-all for title opportunities, and they're far from the only thing that gives AEW a real sports feel. The rankings are merely a plot device to help give us a sense of where competitors stand within the division and provide legitimate contenders whenever a storyline isn't driving the title scene. But if a champion, especially in an already stacked division, wants to give away seemingly random title shots out of arrogance, I think that makes sense. In fact, it's even better in this case because FTR got to come across as altruistic while still furthering their narrative with the Young Bucks. Additionally, I'd like to point out that commentary was rattling off people's records and stats all night long, and on Dark, Taz routinely breaks down the technical aspects of matches in between his choice banter with Excalibur. So to sum up, I disagree with the whole lack of a real sports feel argument. Big Swole takes on Hikaru Shida next for the AEW Women's World Championship. There's a respectful handshake to start as a sign of good sportsmanship. Once again, it's a really good contest, but it's also the shortest championship match of the night, not to mention there's a commercial break through much of it. In the end, Shida avoids a ripcord lariat and hits a running knee to both the front and back of Swole's head, securing the pin and retaining her title. We get a quick video package from Shawn Spears explaining that he's not stalking Scorpio Sky. Turns out he's just mad about Sky interrupting his match on Late Night Dynamite. Spears claims that this was a stolen moment, so he's coming to collect on that debt. In the main event, Jon Moxley defends his AEW World Championship against Lance Archer in a no disqualification match. Archer sure knows how to make an entrance, throwing some guy through a pane of glass as he comes out of the tunnel. Eddie Kingston and the Lucha Brothers join commentary, antagonizing JR and crew for pretty much the entire match. Moxley comes down through the stands like always. Lance tries to jump him the second he gets in the ring, but in one swift move, Mox nails him with a paradigm shift. They brawl around the outside. Archer introduces some tables and grins while setting them up. Moxley finds some chairs and sets them up in the ring. He attempts a Death Valley driver, but Archer counters and puts Mox through them with a chokeslam. When Moxley tries a suicide dive, Archer catches him in the face with a trash can. They battle on the apron above the tables. Mox reverses a double underhook and puts Archer through them with a flying paradigm shift. They're both bleeding from the head as they get back into the ring. Moxley hits a third paradigm shift, but the Murder Hawk monster somehow kicks out. So Mox turns it into the Bulldog choke, but Archer just stands up and slams him. He picks the champ up off the mat and delivers a blackout. But instead of kicking out, Moxley rolls Archer into a pin and escapes with his AEW World Championship. What a match! That's how you build a monster and book a babyface to overcome the odds. Not sure if I totally agree with a roll-up victory, but it's the right outcome, so that's all that matters. They told a great, brutal story, using the weapons to build anticipation throughout the match, not merely for cheap bloodlust. However, to me, the most amazing part was how they utilized the hype over Moxley's finisher, built up during his feud with MJF, to showcase Archer's unstoppable nature, by having him kick out from 3 of them. This is exactly what WWE was trying to do with Reigns vs. Lesnar, except they failed so miserably at it that they literally got booed out of the building. Afterwards, Archer attacks Moxley until, strangely, Eddie Kingston, who spent the whole match claiming he wanted the winner softened up for him, sends the Lucha Brothers down to chase off Lance. They help Mox to his feet, while Eddie recounts all the good times they've had together over the years. Phoenix even retrieves the belt as Kingston showers Mox with compliments, before giving him a spinning back fist and choking him out. This was great, and what's incredible about having all these interconnected mid-card factions is that within seconds of wrapping up one feud, Kingston is right there, already built up as both the next contender and a legitimate threat, thanks to his goons. Eddie throws the belt on Moxley's prone body and screams, "This is everything we fight for, but you took it from me. I never tapped, I never quit, and I'm gonna get you, John." There's some disagreement online, but I thought this was yet another great show. The wrestling was fantastic across the board. I popped so freaking hard when Jericho challenged MJF to a goddamn steak dinner. Britt Baker and Tony Schiavone continue to prop up an otherwise weak women's division with their hilarious antics. Cody, Orange Cassidy, and Darby Allin are arguably my 3 favorite wrestlers in AEW right now, and the prospect of a TNT triple threat between them has me drooling. And of course, Moxley continues to be an all-around badass world champion. He's so likable and self-deprecating, but also tough as nails, so he looks totally legitimate holding that belt and running through opponent after opponent no matter the odds. I just feel like AEW is in a really good rhythm right now, and it's consistently pumping out quality pro wrestling on a weekly basis. Can't complain about that. Alright, that'll do it for Wednesday Night Dynamite. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. I'm currently working on a new AEW stage, and hopefully it will be ready for next week's review. In the meantime, check back on Saturday when I'll be back with my action figure review of SmackDown. As always, if you found me and enjoy my content, make sure to do all that normal YouTube stuff. Smash the like button, share with any wrestling or action figure fans you may know, subscribe to the channel, and spread the word. You can also talk to me over on Twitter, at PSUOptimus, or see all my best figure photography on Instagram at WrestlingOptimus. If you haven't seen my review of Raw and Night 2 of the Draft, you can check that out right here. But until next time, I've been Wrestling Optimus, and I'll catch you later.